2020 was supposed to be a critical year for climate targets. It's interesting how the British public were so quick to act against the virus as it posed a direct threat to them. However, as the effects of climate change are taking their toll in developing countries, there is that sense of distance or a lack of awareness towards how serious this issue is and is becoming. Do you think COVID-19 has pushed the issues of climate change on the back burner, or is the Scottish Government still as committed as they would be towards bringing about the great improvements needed?
So the Scottish Government's still absolutely as committed. You could say that one of the downsides of the pandemic was that we didn't proceed with the legislation on the circular economy. However, we have progressed the climate plan. We are as committed in a policy sense and a practical sense to tackling climate change. If you look at the climate plan, it spreads right across all aspects of life and identifies areas where we can and must do better. But you won't get there without collective behavioural change. And I think your question is a really good one, because I think over the last few years, the public have become more alive to climate change because they're seeing the impacts on themselves daily. So, the greater flooding episodes, the more severe weather has focused minds, has made people recognise that there is a significant issue there. On the downside, the pandemic has seen more people taken to the countryside, and unfortunately, the behaviours far too often, sadly, have not reflected a recognition of protecting the environment and respecting it. And that's certainly been a concern that I felt from the pandemic. I think the good thing is that we've got COP26 coming quite soon. And Scotland will be in the eye of the world. And that presents an opportunity to raise domestic awareness of climate change issues. Not just here, because I think it was what we were seeing on our doorstep that was prompting some people to think about their behaviours. But as you point out, this is a global problem, and it's sometimes the poorest and most vulnerable parts of the planet that are most affected by this. So I think there is a risk of a dip in commitment and awareness, and not so much awareness, a dip in commitment amongst the public. That's why the rebuild from this has to be a green rebuild. The recovery has to be founded in what we're going to need to do to tackle climate change. And it's obviously at the same time looking after the economy, making sure there are jobs for people. But we can do this. We've got to see this as an opportunity to get it right in the rebuild and make sure we don't slip back into bad habits on a day-to-day basis. So things like investing more in public transport, healthy transport options, walking, cycling, which we've seen people do more often during the pandemic. We don't want to lose that. If that's a habit they've got into, let's keep that going. Quite often you've looked at the roads and they've not been as busy as they used to be. That's a good thing as well, Mm-hmm. And it's just about those little changes that we can all make that will prompt a collective effort to make the contribution that we need to make to tackling climate change, because it is an imperative. There's no doubt about that. That has not gone away because of the pandemic, and we absolutely mustn't let our focus on recovering from the pandemic somehow allow us to forget about the climate imperative that sits alongside that.